With effect from the 26th of October 2024, there's a new duty on employers to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment of their employees in the course of their employment. The aim of the new duty is to try and make employers take more preventative action to stop sexual harassment from occurring in the workplace, rather than just dealing more reactively to complaints or allegations of sexual harassment that are raised.
The government is inserting a new Section 40A into the Equality Act. It will only apply to sexual harassment. It won't relate to other areas of harassment relating to age, sex, race, and it won't relate to sex-related harassment. It's just a sexual harassment component.
Under the current legislation, employees have the right to bring a claim of sexual harassment against their employer if they believe that they've been subjected to sexual harassment by another employee. And employers could potentially raise a defence against such a claim if they can show that they took all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment from occurring. However, the new duty puts a more proactive obligation on the employer to take steps in advance to try and stop the harassment from occurring at all.
So the new duty is a duty to implement reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace, but that sexual harassment could occur and could be perpetrated by third parties such as clients, suppliers, or even members of the public.
It's really important that employers identify areas of risk that could be posed by third parties as well as within their own workplace. The new duty doesn't give employees a right to bring a claim in the employment tribunal for sexual harassment against third parties. However, the Equality and Human Rights Commission can investigate such allegations, and they can also enforce the duty on employers. The Labour government has, however, announced proposals to extend the right to bring a harassment claim against third parties, and that would cover all types of harassment rather than just sexual harassment. Therefore, it's crucial that employees make sure they do have appropriate policies in place and that they're ready to adapt to any further changes. Businesses need to be thinking now about the reasonable steps they need to have in force to show that they've complied with the duty to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. What's considered to be reasonable will vary according to the specific business. So an employment tribunal would take into account things like the size of the business, the resources that are available to the business, and the industry that the business operates in. As a minimum, all employers should be thinking about identifying risks that are specific to their business, thinking about steps that might be appropriate to take, and then implementing the most appropriate courses of action. Specific steps that employers need to be thinking about taking include, firstly, making sure that they conduct an initial risk assessment, identifying specific areas of risk to their business, and that needs to be kept under review. It needs to be updated regularly, and in the event that there is any incident or allegation of sexual harassment in the workplace, that needs to be incorporated into the risk assessment going forward to try and prevent it from happening again.
Every organisation should be focusing on their policies, making sure they have robust anti-harassment and discrimination and equal opportunities policies, training both for the wider organisation, senior leadership and managers, and a clear distinction between those trainings, and the culture, so making sure that the messaging and the tone comes from the top down.
It's important to make sure that these policies specifically address sexual harassment. Employers need to make sure that they have in place clear policies so that the employees know how to report concerns regarding sexual harassment in the workplace.
There's equally important ancillary policies, grievance policy that includes clear reporting guidelines and how employees can report instances of harassment. And then there's various other policies that are more ancillary, such as alcohol and drugs policies, events policies. Another policy that employers should have in place is a robust disciplinary policy that outlines that harassment will be deemed to be misconduct, or in some cases, if it's serious enough, gross misconduct.
It's really important that businesses look at the culture of the workplace to ensure that employees feel confident to speak up. It's also advisable for employers to think about whether there might be some other policies that could be implemented or updated. For example, if employees actively use social media, employers might want to consider reviewing or implementing a policy on social media to prevent sexual harassment occurring in that forum.
So alongside policies which on their own aren't adequate as a reasonable step to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace, they need to be brought to life by training. And as a minimum, this training should set out clear expectations of what's expected of the organisation, how you report sexual harassment, what to do if you witness sexual harassment, and what to do if sexual harassment is reported to you. So this really is to sort of set the tone and bring it to life, but it's also not going to be adequate if it's just a box ticking exercise or if it's stale. It needs to be regularly updated. It needs to be tailored to your organisation, so anticipate specific scenarios that are specific to your industry, your sector and your organisation.
Training needs to be given to all staff, and again that needs to be tailored to the specific business and the risks that have been identified in the risk assessment. And different types of training should be given to different levels of employees. So all employees need to be made aware how to raise a complaint if they have concerns about sexual harassment. However, in addition to that, managers and HR teams need to know how to appropriately handle complaints that have been raised to them. Managers and HR teams who receive complaints of sexual harassment should also receive training on the culture in the workplace to try and encourage employees to speak up. There are both financial and reputational risks to employers that fail to comply with the new duty. Financially, if an employee has a claim for sexual harassment that they bring in the employment tribunal, and the employer is found to have failed to comply with their duty to have taken reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment, then the employment tribunal can award an uplift of up to 25% on the compensation for harassment, and that can be quite a significant amount. Reputationally, in addition to the fact that an employee could bring a claim in the public forum of an employment tribunal, there's also the risk that the Equality and Human Rights Commission could get involved and could investigate such a complaint and try to take enforcement action directly. This is an area of law that's under scrutiny by the current government as well, and there are further proposals for reform on the horizon. At Collyer Bristow, we can help your business take steps to comply with the new obligation. That might include assisting you with risk assessments, we can help provide training to staff, and we can also review and assist with updating policies. We will work in collaboration with you to ensure that the policies and procedures you have in place and the training packages you roll out to staff are tailored to the specific risks that you've identified for your business and for your specific industry. If you have any questions or concerns about the new legislation, please get in touch with the employment team at Collyer Bristow and we'd be happy to help.